and welcome back to my small little library. Let's talk about all of the books I've read in April, because we have already May, which I'm probably gonna say this every month, but yeah, I feel like the year is flying by. But yeah, I actually had quite the productive reading month in April. I finished 13 books, which is quite nice. A mix of listening to some audiobooks and reading physical books. And the first book I actually read in April was an audiobook that I finished in April, and that is Dope Sick, a book about the opioid epidemic in America, which is like a really, really big topic. Like, there's a lot to talk about. You kind of can't escape the topic, you know, even though I don't live in America and stuff. But yeah, I know a few points about it, and so I thought, why not listen to that audiobook, get a little bit more of an opinion about it. But in the end, I don't think the audiobook is meant to really inform anybody about facts. It was more of a plea by families who were affected by it. So the book is by Beth Macy. The complete name is Dope Sick: Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America. And that is pretty much what the book is about, you know. It is a mother who has personal experience with it and helps other people and in the community. And it's more like about what did the community do, what kind of things did they try to help. It talks a little bit about a few doctors who tries to help, but also about the bad people, and it's more like an appeal to your feelings than a factual book. And so I gave it 3 stars, because for me personally, I enjoy more of a factual and a facts point of view, more than an emotional plea. But that said, I do acknowledge that it is important to show that side, and I do think that that book has its value, especially if you I don't know, maybe know some people who are really unsympathetic to the whole thing, you know, all of the victims from it, because the book talks a lot about young people who have a serious injury because of sports or stuff, and then they got addicted, and that pretty much destroyed their lives, which is a really, really hard thing to hear. Yeah, my conclusion from all of this was that I was really glad that in Germany we handle pain medication really, really different. And I don't think, well, you can still get addicted to pain medication here, but it's a lot less likely that you will do it. And also I feel here you don't have doctors who are sworn to one brand of medicine. Here you often get a prescription for a type of painkiller, and then the pharmacy gives you whatever brand you want to have. So that might be a bit of a better factor here. But yeah, 3 stars. It is impactful, but it wasn't what I would have wanted from a book about the opioid crisis, which I definitely want to read more about, because the topic is incredibly just this big thing that still goes on today, but I don't think we talk enough about. So yeah. Then to continue with hard-hitting stuff, I read The I-5 Killer by Anne Rule. I wanted to read more by Anne Rule, and so yeah, I think I got in the last TBR that I did, I got a true crime book, and so I bought The I-5 Killer. I gave the book 4 stars. I like Anne Rule's true crime books. I think they are a good mixture of stuff about the perpetrator, but also the victims. And Anne Rule pretty much wrote the book for the victims, because the I-5 Killer didn't kill all of his victims. There are a lot of surviving victims who have to live with what he did to them. And so yeah, she pretty much wrote down all of what happened, and it is quite the case. I didn't really know anything about this case, which was quite interesting, because yeah, I watched a lot of the true crime documentaries. I have to be honest, I'm interested in that stuff. But yeah, this was really, really interesting. Yeah, it's really hard to see how just I don't even know how to like formulate a sentence with that, but like it's so hard how like bad people can be, you know. But yeah, I would, if you like Anne Rule in general, if you have read other stuff by her, I would definitely say pick it up. If you haven't read anything by Anne Rule yet, I don't know, I still like The Stranger Beside Me, which is the other one of her I read. I think I like that one just a little bit more, but like they are pretty much even when it comes to books from her. So yeah, pick it up. It's a good book. Then I listened to my next audiobook, which is The Unseen Body, a doctor's journey through the hidden wonders of human anatomy. And that one was really, really interesting. I gave it 4 stars. Anatomy and like stuff about the human body I'm also really interested about, and that was pretty much a book about somebody who didn't really have the goal to become a doctor in the beginning, but then his life kind of like brought him there. And he also does travel a lot, and so he pretty much sees medical stuff through different cultures and just like talks a lot about it. For example, like we in Europe, for example, we wouldn't eat like only a fat diet because that wouldn't be really healthy for us here. But the Inuit, for example, or like people who live in like really cold climates, pretty much most of the time eat like only whale, for example, and really, really little vegetables, and they are still really healthy. And he talks about a lot of stuff like that, you know. Just like these different aspects of medicine around the world and what that can show you, and how he kind of tries to make life for his patients better through understanding different cultures and just like learning what to do better to be the best doctor his patients could have. And yeah, I just think that was really, really interesting. He sounds like a really great doctor, so yeah. Really like the book. Also the name of the author, I totally forgot, is Jonathan Reisman. So he's a doctor and an author. Then we come to some older horror, and the first one that I read this month was Goat Dance by Douglas Clegg. My copy is a little bit better because I got it secondhand, but yeah, we have this really cool like cover which like reveals this demon. Which in all honesty, I don't think that the picture really fits with the book, but yeah. I get this one 3 stars. It has really, really good sides, but in the end I think it's too long. And I don't know, it was really weird. Like you have a mixture of like body horror, but at the same time physical horror, which actually isn't bad, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, it didn't really stay, you know, the story didn't really stay with me, and I think it fulfills the job, but it isn't like peak performance, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it wasn't bad. You have pretty much our main character. He is from this little village where called Pontefract in Virginia, and he moves away and leaves pretty much his youth behind because he went there to the only high school that was there, and something bad happened. We don't get to know what happened at the beginning of the book, and then he gets a call from, like, she wasn't really his girlfriend, but like his girlfriend, to come back because she needs help, and he comes back and there's just like really bad things happening, and it has to do with some evil living under the city for a long time at this point already. And then he teams up with his old teacher, and yeah, they kind of try to navigate the horror and come out on the other end unscathed, which like obviously not all of them come out of in the end, but yeah, I liked it. I think it's a good read, but I don't think like it's a book you definitely need to read, you know, which is why I gave it 3 stars. Then we have the next audiobook by Black Crouch, which like big fan, and that is Upgrade. I gave it 4 stars. For me, the book is really interesting. Generally, Black Crouch has really interesting topics for his books. They're all sci-fi, and they're all just like things we all have wondered about, I think. but yeah, they are not that talked about. And so in Upgrade, it's about human upgrades and DNA manipulation, and it's at the beginning of the book it's already like clamped down upon in America. It is forbidden to upgrade yourself or other humans because of the dangers that it comes with, and like terrorism and stuff like that. And our main character, his mother, was like a big researcher, and because of her a lot of people died because she did some DNA manipulation for a food source, and yeah, it kind of all went wrong and she felt really bad, but still obviously people wouldn't forgive her, and now the Earth is kind of like on the brink of extinction. Humanity, kind of, because there was like a big flood then, and yeah, people don't have a lot to eat and there aren't a lot of people left in general. And so yeah, he tries to be better than his mother, kind of, but his mother still has other plans, and so he gets upgraded against his will, and he kind of has to save humanity from this upgrade. And yeah, there's a lot of like philosophical questions along the way of kind of like, maybe humanity needs to upgrade because obviously we aren't really good to our world, but like maybe the upgrade would make us less human, and are we then humanity at all if you aren't human anymore? And so yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I just think some parts like were a little bit too long, to be honest, and some decisions I couldn't like quite understand, but yeah, in general the theme is like really interesting and I think the story is done quite well. So yeah, big fan of Black Crouch. Next up we have a book I certainly wasn't as big of a fan of as I would have liked to. And I'm probably gonna anger a lot of people, but that is The Name of the Wind. I have this really pretty 10th anniversary edition. Really pretty book. I disliked it. I still gave it 3 stars. But I absolutely loved the first 300 pages. If you would give me those just like in a book, it would have been 5 stars. And then comes the rest of the book, which is like 400 pages, 450, something around there. And I hated that part. The main character kind of for me like just goes bad between the first 300 pages and the last 400. Kind of like, I don't know, he gets so unlikable in my opinion. The story gets really, really boring. And the biggest factor, you have to read all 3 books to get the story. There's so much that gets teased in here and you get to hear nothing about it, and the book just ends without really like an ending. It's really like you have to read the next part to know anything. And I hate that. I really, really hate it. So I gave it 3 stars just because I loved the beginning so much. Yeah, I just really didn't like our main character. There wasn't enough lore. You pretty much learn little to nothing about the world. And it's just so weird. It's just, I don't know. I still have a hard time communicating why I dislike it so much. Except for like the stuff that I told you. But I don't know, it's also so long and so unnecessarily long for giving you so little. So yeah, I decided I won't continue with the series. It isn't worth it for me. Yeah, it's at least it looks pretty in the bookshelf, you know. It has to fulfill a reason to be there, you know. But yeah, I was incredibly disappointed by that because I had really high hopes. I mean, it is like a really positively, like it is a book that has a lot of positive reviews. And so yeah, I just thought, you know, it's a fantasy, it has a lot of positive reviews, I will like it, you know. It's like really the books that I love to read, like, you know, it fitted so perfectly. Yeah, and I didn't like it at all really for like the last bit, and yeah, I don't know. I'm sad about it, to be honest. I wish I would have loved it, but I just cannot. It took me so long to get through it because I just had to stop reading, read different things because I was so annoyed by the book. But yeah, because I bought that fancy edition. I wanted to read it, and yeah, could have gone with the cheap paperback, to be honest. Also, yeah, The Name of the Wind, if you don't know, is by Patrick Rothfuss. And I still think part 3 isn't out there, which is like a big problem in the community. I wouldn't wait on it, to be honest. Yeah, then the next book also was kind of bad. It was an audiobook I listened to because I bought book 2 without knowing that it's the second book. And so yeah, then I decided to get book 1 from the library as an audiobook. It's called A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Nouvel. I read Sleeping Giants by him. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I didn't actively dislike it. So it was like a gamble to pick up another book by him. And yeah, this one was even worse than Sleeping Giants. I gave it 2 stars, the first one. You have our main characters, which is pretty much 2 women, mother and daughter, and they are the Kipsu, which is kind of like an alien race that came to Earth, but they look exactly like humans. They don't stand out in any way, but they are like physically really, really strong, and they are really good at math and science, and their goal is kind of to like get back to the stars, to get back to their world. And they get hunted by like a group of men, and they are identical, like mother and daughter pretty much are the same person, but they have 2 different minds, but they kind of also share memories in a kind of sense. Like, it's really weird, and it doesn't get explained in the book. And the first book is pretty much like, it reads like historical fiction about the Second World War, because that is what is shown in the book, because our main characters try to like get humanity to the moon, and that obviously like played throughout the Second World War, and they kind of like help the Germans, help the Russians, help where they're needed, but they work with like really bad people, and even though they say it bothers them, they still do it. It's so weird. And yeah, I didn't like it, primarily because I don't like historical fiction. I thought this was a sci-fi book, and in a sense it is a sci-fi book, but for me it was like 89% historical fiction, 2% sci-fi, which just isn't enough. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was really weird. You learn so little in the book about the Kipsu. And yeah, so I gave it 2 stars, and I still picked up Patu this month, but we're coming to that in a bit. Yeah. The next physical book I've read was The Center, another older horror book, and this one is a medical horror book. We have The Center, which is a medical center completely run by robots, and a young child goes in there for like tonsil surgery, and she dies. And so her older sister, because the parents don't live anymore, and her older sister has like she's her guardian. So she tries to find out what happened, because obviously a young child dying while tonsil surgery really seems weird. And then we have also the perspective of a doctor who is like active in the center, like he organized it, and he does train the center in new surgeries and stuff, and other than that he like operates on his own surgery. And so yeah, he also like kind of like finds some weird stuff, and so he decides to check out what happens at the center, and yeah, then it's kind of a horror book. And yeah, the book is by David Chaubin. I found it really interesting, to be honest. I think there were some unnecessary things in here. Also, our main characters have kind of like an insta-lovey story. It makes sense, like the relationship does fit into the book, but I still find it weird that it's an insta-lovey thing. But yeah, it kind of fits into the story. But yeah, for me it kind of like was less horror than I hoped, and more like kind of like a military thriller kind of thing, even though none of our participants are military. But yeah, there's like a whole operation with like weapons and stuff in here. And yeah, so it felt less like horror and more like a drama thriller kind of thing. So that is why I gave it 3 stars, because I kind of found it weird, to be honest. I would have loved more horror, if you know what I mean. But I still think it's an interesting read. I would definitely say give it a try if you can do it. If you have like problems with operations going haywire and stuff, maybe don't read it. It can be scary, to be honest. And it has also like a really cool cover. You have like the visor of like a mask here, and then you have like this operating scene on the front. So yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it, but yeah, I liked it, and I think it's really interesting. It's definitely like an interesting read in between. After that, I was then in the mood for some ghost stories, and I read two by Susan Hill, which are these two. First I read The Small Hand, and then I read The Man in the Picture. The Small Hand is like, both are ghost stories, but The Small Hand, we have like a bookseller who is like specialized in like rare old books, and while like driving the countryside, he finds this really old dilapidated house with like a really nice garden, and there he feels a small hand in his, and from then on he's kind of haunted, and it turns out to be like a bad dark family secret kind of thingy. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Susan Hill's ghost stories aren't really like scary. They're more like sad, melodramatic kind of stories, and I personally really like that. So yeah, I really would recommend this one. The second one is another thing, The Man in the Picture. Here we have like a picture that depicts dead people, and it's connected with Venice, and it has also to do with like an old fancy family and jealous women and stuff like that, so it's kind of convoluted, which I liked. What I didn't like was the unnecessary repeat of the story, you know, sometimes where like horror goes back and shows you the circle that didn't end after the initial story. But here it kind of tells you both stories completely through, which I found so weird, because wouldn't you just begin to show that maybe the horror continues, but you wouldn't like repeat the complete horror? So yeah, I didn't like that, which is why I gave it 3 stars. The rest of the book I also really liked. It's like also really atmospheric. Both of these books were. Yeah, I really like Susan Hill. Also The Woman in Black I read a long time ago, but that one I also really liked. And yeah, I was in the mood for those, and I had a good time reading them, to be honest. Then, as I said, I picked up part 2 of A History of What Comes Next, that is called Until the Last of Me. This is the one I bought. Nowhere on the outside does it say that it's the second part. I'm really annoyed about that, to be honest. Sadly, this one also got 2 stars. We now are more like in like the 70s and 80s with a new couple of mother and daughter. We get to know a little bit more about their enemies, the guys. They have a little bit of a bigger role in this one. You still don't learn more about the Kipsu. I have no idea how he managed to write 2 books about the Kipsu without telling you more about them, which was really annoying in my opinion. It's still more historical fiction, or like a historical book, than sci-fi, though the sci-fi does ramp up a little bit, but not much. I hated the ending. I don't want to spoiler you, but I think the ending was just really undeserved. It's a cop-out, in my opinion, to pretty much show you like all of the things about the Kipsu in book 3. I won't read book 3, I just don't think it's necessary. I didn't like it. I just don't think it's a good series. Maybe if you like historical fiction with a dash of sci-fi, maybe then pick it up, but if you want like a sci-fi book, don't bother with it. It just doesn't make sense. Then I listened to a good sci-fi story, and that is Contact by Carl Sagan. Really good book. It's really science heavy, which is nice because he is a scientist. He actually studied the topic, which is nice, you know. And yeah, Contact is a book about contact with aliens, and it's pretty much the whole life story of our main character, who is a woman in like the 70s, 80s, who gets told over and over again, like, yeah, women don't go into sciences, and she kind of like says fuck you and does it anyway, and it's like a really, really, really great story when it comes to that. And the aliens I found really interesting, just like the whole way the story goes. I won't spoil you because I think saying anything is saying too much, but yeah, I really enjoyed that book. I gave it 4 stars. It was a really interesting story, and I'm definitely going to pick up more of Carl Sagan because I really liked the way he told the story. There was a lot of like philosophy in there, and like talk about religion and what it means to humanity to find life outside of Earth, and how humanity kind of like copes with that and stuff. Really interesting. Really, really good. I would say pick it up. Also, as someone in my comments told me, there's a movie about the book, so if you might not want to read it, maybe watch the movie. It is supposed to be good, so if it is as good as the book, I would say watch the movie. It's really interesting. And then now we're coming to the last book, which is a redeeming fantasy because yeah, I read The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. Really interesting fantasy. There was only one character in here which I really didn't like, and that is Jezal, who sadly will be in book 2. I'm kind of annoyed about that, but yeah. Other than that, the characters in here are really, really interesting. We have like some Northman, a Northman fighter who kind of like doesn't have a loyalty anymore. Then we have like a magus whose magic is running out. We have a torturer who was tortured and crippled by another empire, and yeah, it's like a really interesting group of characters. And the first book is kind of like, it feels a little bit like a prequel to a fantasy series, but I still liked it a lot, and I'm really, really interested to see where we're going with the story. So yeah, if you want a good fantasy in comparison to The Name of the Wind, maybe pick up The Blade Itself, you know. I just think this one is so much better. Yeah, it's really interesting. The lore about the world is like really interesting. There is a lot of lore there, and yeah. As I love this copy, I think it's really pretty, so yeah, pick it up. So, these were all of the books I've read in April. I had a really good reading month, I think. Some good books, some bad books, but like a good amount of books, and yeah, I'm really happy with that. So maybe tell me if you've read any of these books, what your opinion was. Maybe like it's just my taste that doesn't like some of the books, but they're actually kind of good, you know, it can always be. And yeah, if you liked the video, please leave a like. Subscribe if you want to, that would really mean the world to me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!